Hello artists, today we are going to make some birch trees for this birch tree project. There are two steps to this. The first step is we are going to draw our birch trees first, and then we are going to paint our birch trees today. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need a piece of tag board. This is 9 by 12 inches. The tag board is kind of thicker paper. It's thicker than construction paper, and it's great for taking paint, which is something we're going to be using today. So you can see I also have my paints. I'll be using a black colored pencil so you can see it well on the camera, but you could just use a regular pencil for this. In fact, that is what I suggest in case you want to make any corrections. So let's begin with this white paper landscape. So sideways, horizontal, not up and down. And we are going to draw different width of trees. So our first trees are gonna be thick ones, then we're gonna get a little bit thinner like medium, and then we'll get nice and thin trees. So the first line, you're gonna make a really thin line right up to the edge of the paper, like that. And the reason I did that is because I want to have an actual rough line to cut when I make my trees so it doesn't look so fine and finished like the edge of this paper. I want you to show yourself that that right there is not a tree. So you're going to put an X there. Now I'm actually going to draw a tree. So I'm going to think about a tree that's maybe 2, maybe 3 fingers thick. This could be a really nice thick tree. So here we go. There's my tree. I'm going to give myself a little bit of space to draw another tree. So I draw a nice thin section like this, real thin. I put an X there. I know it seems silly, like, well, of course that's not a tree, but you'll see later when we get to the thin ones why it's helpful. Let's make another nice thick tree. 2 thick ones is good. And then our dividing line and our X in there. Now we're going to make some medium trees. So not as thick as your first ones. Always with your dividing line. I'm going to make 3 medium trees. And now I'm going to make some skinny trees. Skinny is like 1 finger thick. That's what I would consider a skinny tree, but you don't want to go any thinner than that. You don't want to go too fast because you might end up with some really crooked looking trees. You don't want them to end up too crooked on your paper. And of course they're trees, so they don't all have to be exactly the same. We may not end up using all these trees anyways. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. We've got a couple of nice thick trees, then we've got some medium trees, and we've got some thin trees, and we've got some extra space here. So let's put a couple more. I'll make a nice big one again, just in case one of my other ones do not work out. There we go. And I'll make a medium one in there. There we go. I'm just going to put an X right there in that last section. Okay, so I got my trees. Nice. Next thing I'm going to do is paint my trees. So here is how we are going to paint the trees. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use some black watercolor. You could also use black tempera paint to get really nice dark trees. Okay. First, let's activate our watercolors. So find the black, put some water in the black just to get it going, get it activated and moist. And now over here, you need to use a big area of your watercolor tray. This is important because we're going to be using a little piece of paper to dip in there. So let's put some water in there. Lots of water. We need to make a whole lot of paint. There we go. Now we're gonna get some of our black paint in there. There we go. We're doing our black paint. Lots and lots of black paint in here, because we're gonna really need this to show up as black. So this is gonna be what we are gonna have for our birch trees. That's our birch tree paint. Okay, we're gonna see with an experiment just how good that is, if it is enough of the paint or not. All right, I'm gonna find my little scraper. So the next thing you're going to need is a little piece of paper that is a scraper. Here we go, sorry about that. It is a little rectangle. Now this is a piece of tag board also. And what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna hold the long end in one hand, and this other long end is what I'm gonna be using to dip into the paint. So here's how we do it. I dip that edge into the paint. You see that? There's just enough on there. And then you take this, go to the side of your tree, and holding your paper firm, you pull it across like that. Now it looks like my paint just absorbed right into it, so let's try again. Now, you see that? That did not make a dark enough impression. Can you see that? Sorry about that. So I need to add some more black. Lots more black to this. There we go. Let's try this again. Got some black paint. There we go. So I'm going to do these scrapes. I'm going to try to stay on the tree that I'm on and just scrape one time. So I scrape, then I go down to where I left off, scrape again, go down to where I left off, and scrape again. You don't have to scrape all the way across. You could scrape just to the middle, or you can go all the way across. And the trick is you don't want too much paint. You want to leave some white areas. You've got to work kind of fast because this little piece of paper is going to get soggy when you're using watercolors. I personally like to use tempera paint more than this watercolor paint, but this is turning out really nice. It looks a little sepia. So I flipped my paper around, you saw that. And then I'm going to tackle the other side. I do not have to scrape everywhere. I could also be kind of choosy about where I decide I need to put some lines. I may not want to put them everywhere. This is your artist's choice. You know, your choice as an artist is deciding how you're going to work with what you have to work with and how you're going to make it look good the way you want it to. All right, so now I've got my birch tree lines on my paper. I'm gonna let this dry and then I will use these later for my birch trees. There you go.